Akira is a sad loser whose only relationship is with his right hand. However, everything changes when he falls for the freakiest girl in school and asks her to be his girlfriend, but she wants him to taste her drool every day in exchange. It all begins one day when the teacher announces that a new transfer student will be joining the class. Just then, an ugly girl named Mikoto walks in, so the teacher assigns her a desk right beside Akira. When she tries to sit, Akira introduces himself and offers to help if she has any questions, but she just silently unpacks her bags. Later at lunch, Akira notices Mikoto asleep on her table when a bunch of girls show up to invite her to lunch. However, Mikoto tells the girls she'd rather be unconscious than talk to them and returns to sleeping. Later that day, the students suffer through a boring class when Mikoto suddenly bursts out laughing like a lunatic. When the teacher asks what's going on, she says there was something she found personally funny but refuses to reveal it. She then apologizes and takes her seat while the rest of the class unanimously label her a Hizoka-level weirdo. From then on, Mikoto continued to sleep on her breaks so no one was able to get close to her until one day after school. Akira found Mikoto sleeping on her desk again, so he tried to wake her up to go home. When she wakes up, he's surprised to see her eyes for the very first time, but informs her it's time to go home. However, as she tries to leave, he tells her to wipe the drool on her chin first. After she leaves, Akira notices the drool left behind on her desk, and his intrusive thoughts get the better of him. He licks the drool and is surprised it tastes sweet, but suddenly gets ashamed when he realizes he's a creep. That night, Akira remembers Mikoto's eyes and thinks she's actually really cute. He then has a fevered dream where he's running around with Mikoto and dancing. When he wakes up, he finds it odd that he dreamed about her, but the dream doesn't fade from his memory until one day when he suddenly collapses on the tracks. The gym teacher asks the boys to carry him to the nurse's office, but Mikoto stares as if she knows what's wrong. Days later, Akira's friend, Kohai, asks the teacher where Akira is, so the teacher explains that Akira's cold didn't seem to be getting any better. That evening, Akira's sister Yoko takes care of him when she hears the doorbell ring and goes to answer it. Moments later, she calls out to tell him a classmate brought over some handouts. But when Akira looks to see who it is, it turns out to be Mikoto. Akira is surprised to see her and wonders where the handouts are, but Mikoto reveals that there were never any handouts. She jumps in bed with him and tells him he doesn't actually have a cold. Then she asks if he happened to taste the drool that was on her desk. When Akira confesses, Mikoto tells him to open his mouth, as she sucks on her finger to get wet and transfers the drool to him. Suddenly, Akira realizes his fever is no longer there and wonders how, so Mikoto explains that he was experiencing withdrawal from not tasting her again. When she tries to leave, Akira asks if there's some special chemical inside of her that made him an addict, but Mikoto laughs her head off at the idiot. She then returns to the bed and tells him that he was just lovesick and wanted to taste more of the girl he loves. Akira struggles to understand when Mikoto reminds him of the dumb look he had on his face when he saw her eyes for the first time. She then suggests that was the moment he fell in love with her and leaves the room. The next day, Akira went to school and continued life as usual, but after school, he found Mikoto waiting for him. She suggests they walk home together, so they stroll for a bit till Akira says he has to go another way. Just then, Mikoto dips her finger inside her again and tells Akira to lick it, so he doesn't go into withdrawal. Akira agrees and asks if that was the only reason she waited for him. Mikoto tells him it is, and suggests they meet the next day and every other day after. From then on, Akira makes a habit of sucking on Mikoto's finger after school till he truly falls in love with the freak. One morning, he wakes up determined to tell her how he feels, so after their usual sucking session, he confesses his feeling and asks her to be his girlfriend. At this, Mikoto tells him to prove it with his actions, so Akira grabs her and tries to go in for a kiss. However, Mikoto pushes him back and asks him to do something more original. Suddenly, Akira remembers the perfect thing and grabs a picture from his wallet to show her. He explains that it's a picture of his last crush, but since he tasted Mikoto, he forgot the picture even existed. To prove his love, he rips up the picture and tells Mikoto he doesn't need it since she's now his girlfriend. Just then, Mikoto vomits more drool and explains that she does that when she's happy. Suddenly, she asks if he's a virgin, and when he admits it, she says she is too. She reveals that the day she burst into laughter in class, she heard a mysterious voice tell her that she would lose her virginity to Akira, which seemed like a bad joke. But since then, she'd been waiting for him to confess his love. She turns to go home, but before she disappears, she agrees to be his girlfriend from then on. The next day, Akira asks Kohai what he would do first if he hypothetically got a girlfriend. Kohai suggests they hold hands, so Akira thanks him and runs off. After school, Akira tried to hold Mikoto's hand, but she pulled away and insisted there's no reason for them to hold hands. Akira gets disappointed, and for the next month, all he does is suck on her finger and nothing more. Frustrated, Akira turns to Kohai for more advice, so Kohai starts to suspect he has a girlfriend. Akira denies it since he's not that popular, so Kohai says he doesn't have one either. However, he suggests the real first step is to try talking about hobbies and stuff. Later, After sucking, Akira asks Mikoto about her hobbies, but she says it's her scissors and asks if he wants to see. When Akira agrees, she pulls out a paper and gives him to hold. She then grabs her scissors from under her skirt and cuts out flowers in the blink of an eye. Akira is impressed, but he asks if it's really okay for her to flash her panties in front of a guy. Mikoto insists that she doesn't mind as long as it's him, that she tells him goodbye as she runs off. The next day in school, Akira asks Kouai what comes before communicating and holding hands, and this time, Kouai is sure he's got a girlfriend. But when Akira denies it, Kouai says the greeting would come first. Later in class, Akira realizes the first time he spoke to Mikoto would probably count as the greeting, but suddenly wonders why she keeps scissors in her panties. After school, Mikoto offers Akira a sweet, but when he passes on it, she eats it herself. She then asks that they part ways earlier than usual, making Akira wonder if it's because he turned her down. However, Akira quickly rushes down and tells Akira to open his mouth while she throws the sweets inside. Suddenly, Akira tries to hug her from behind, but Mikoto breaks free and pulls out her scissors, which she uses to cut the boxes behind him. She warns him never to grab her like that without asking and says goodbye. When she leaves, Akira continues to wonder when exactly they'll get to behave like a couple at all. Some days later, Kouai hands Akira some movie tickets he had asked for a while back. Akira then figures Mikoto would be impressed by them and thanks Kouai. After school, Akira asks Mikoto if she'd go to the movies with him on Sunday, but Mikoto turns him down since she already has plans. When she tries to give him the finger, she finds him sulking and asks what's wrong. Akira points out that they haven't done anything that couples usually do, but Mikoto insists that they have their disgusting bond. She then promises to prove it to him and asks him to follow her somewhere. Moments later, they arrive at an abandoned building, and Akira starts questioning if he's really safe with the weirdo. Inside, Mikoto asks him to sit on a stool and makes him promise to keep his eyes closed till she asks him to open them. Akira agrees, and moments later, Mikoto licks her finger again and warns him that this particular one is special. When Akira tastes it, his heart starts pounding, so Mikoto tells him his body is getting hot while his nose bleeds. She then explains that it's because her heart was racing when she gave him a taste. Since Akira's eyes are closed, he can't see that Mikoto's clothes are all on the floor, but she tells him that his ability to feel their excitement is proof of their bond. Moments after, she tells him to open his eyes, but she's already dressed. On the way back, Mikoto explains that her heart was pounding because she was afraid Akira would break his promise. Akira asks what would have happened if she did, so she grabs her scissors and proceeds to slice up his notebook to demonstrate how she would have lost it. She apologizes for destroying his book, but Akira is glad he didn't open his eyes and suffer the same fate. That night, Akira had a weird dream of Mikoto with a doll on her head asking him to swipe her V card. So the next day, when they walk home together, Mikoto wonders why he's blushing. Akira says he remembered a dream he had, but insists on keeping it a secret. At this, Mikoto quickly draws some of his drool and tastes it, making her nose bleed. She then tells Akira he's allowed to dream what he wants, but if they were really getting busy, she wouldn't have a doll tied to her head. However, when Akira asks how she knows what happened in her dream, she says it's a secret and runs away. Some days later, Akira finishes with his class duties, which stop him from going home with Mikoto. Suddenly, he catches Kouai kissing a girl and accidentally alerts them. Kouai quickly runs over to ask if he saw them, then confesses that they've been going out since the first year. When Akira calls him out on lying, Kouai explains that it would be weird if anyone found out and begs him to keep it a secret. Later in class, Akira can't get over Kouai's secret relationship when he remembers he has a secret of his own. However, he's surprised that Kouai has already gotten to first base and wishes he could kiss Mikoto too. Later on the way home, Mikoto asks Akira if they can stop at a park nearby. There she says she wants to do her homework since it's not much. Akira agrees to join her, and as they write, he informs her that Kouai and Ayuko are dating, and he even caught them kissing. He gets disappointed when Mikoto shows no interest, but she suddenly asks if he wants to kiss her. When he confirms this, she pulls out a test tube and asks him to hold it for a moment. She then does whatever the heck this is and asks for the test tube to drool in it. When she's done, she hands it over to Akira and tells him to taste it before going to bed at night. That night, Akira's sister is surprised at how early he's going to bed and figures he's probably just growing up. But when he's alone in his room, he pours out the contents of the tube and licks it, wondering why Mikoto tastes so sweet. Later, he dreams of Mikoto putting a sweet in her mouth. When he asks for one, Mikoto kisses him to transfer it into his mouth while she takes another one. Akira asks why she did that, since that was technically their first kiss. So Mikoto points out that he clearly wanted to try it since he saw Kouai and Ayuko getting down to business. However, Akira insists that first kisses shouldn't be surprise attacks, but they should be with all their feelings. Suddenly, Akira wakes up and stares at the strange test tube. The next day, Akira stares at Mikoto's lips while she sleeps and gets nervous. After school, he informs her that she did what she said and had a weird dream. Mikoto then takes him to close by park and asks if he wants to kiss, but Akira says they should wait till until they understand each other's feelings. At this, Mikoto blushes and tells him she feels the same way. Afterward, Akira tries to understand Mikoto by copying her, but he ends up looking like an idiot in class. Later, when they're on cleanup duty, he notices another boy named Ogata staring at her as she collects the trash. When she takes the bin outside, Ogata follows her while Kohai shows up to distract him. Outside, Ogata asks to help Mikoto take out the trash, so she thanks him and tries to head back till he insists he wants to talk to her. Mikoto agrees and follows him back, but on the way, he stops and asks her to go out with him. After school, Akira tries to find out what happened when Mikoto interrupts him to give him a better use for his mouth. While he sucks, she tells him Ogata had confessed to her and asked her out. Then, Akira freaks out and asks what happened. Apparently, Ogata said he was interested in her because she was mysterious and different from other girls. He insisted that going out didn't have to be a big deal, and they could just walk home together so they could get to know each other. In the present, Akira asks what her answer was, and she reveals that she asked him to wait till the next day. Akira offers to tell him he's her boyfriend, but Mikoto forbids it and insists on handling it herself. She then greets him goodbye and runs off. That night, Yoko asks Akira if he's going to bed early again, and when he says yes, she secretly assumes he's reached the walking age. Meanwhile, Akira wonders why Mikoto didn't flatly refuse Ogata since he's already her boyfriend. He realizes Ogata has that soccer player Riz and assumes Mikoto is trying to decide between Ogata and him. The next day, Mikoto prepares for school when she decides not to wear any underwear this time. So for the rest of the day, she has to keep holding down her skirt. During lunch period, Mikoto suddenly gets up and walks out of the class, so Ogata follows her out. As Akira watches this, he starts to stress eat to distract himself. Meanwhile, Ogata catches up to Mikoto and asks to talk, so they head outside, and Mikoto asks him to close his eyes for a moment. Ogata agrees, so Mikoto licks her finger and sticks it into his mouth. She then asks if his body feels different somehow, but Ogata can't feel anything at all. At this, Mikoto tells him he can never become her boyfriend and walks away. After school, Mikoto laments how windy the whole day has been while Akira asks what happened with Ogata. When Mikoto says she rejected him, Akira confesses that he thought she was struggling to choose. At this, Mikoto sticks her finger in his mouth and blood starts flowing. He immediately asks what's going on, so Mikoto pulls out her underwear and explains that she went commando all day. This is because she wanted to see how Ogata would react to her dinner based on how she was feeling. However, Ogata had no reaction while Akira did, because he's her boyfriend and the only one who shares the bond with her. Touched, Akira tries to hug her, but Mikoto jumps away and reaches for her scissors, which aren't there this time. She then reminds him not to hug her without permission but holds his hand as they walk home. The next day in class, Akira catches Kohai smiling like a fool and asks what's going on. At this, Kohai reminds him that the students will start wearing their PE uniforms by the following day, so he can finally see his girlfriend's body in all its glory. Akira tells him that it's too early to become a creep, but Kohai tells him he can't possibly understand since he's chronically single. Suddenly, Akira realizes he'll also get to see Mikoto in her PE uniform and finally understands. Just then, Ayuko walks up and asks Mikoto if she wants to eat lunch together, but Mikoto tells her never to wake her up again. Ayuko then suggests she eat while Mikoto sleeps, so Mikoto agrees. The class watches in stunned silence as Ayuko really does eat at her table, when Mikoto suddenly wakes up and says the food smells really good. Ayuko happily offers her some, and Mikoto agrees to be fed, shocking everyone. After school, Akira asks if anything is going on between her and Ayuko, but Mikoto says Ayuko walked up to her out of the blue. At this, Akira says he's happy for her since she hasn't made friends with any of the other girls, but Mikoto says she doesn't need any friends because she's got a boyfriend. She then sucks her finger and sticks it in him as usual before greeting him goodbye. The next day, the boys get excited to see the girls in their PE uniforms while the girls get dressed. Unfortunately, the boys end up doing indoor judo while the girls run track outside. Mikoto tries out for a relay race when a girl suddenly runs into her and causes her to trip. After the race, the coach points out how badly she's bleeding and suggests she go to the nurse's office, so Ayuko shows up and offers to take her. Mikoto says it's not a big deal, but Ayuko reminds her she's a girl and the wound can leave a scar. Meanwhile, Kohai slams Akira into the ground like a maniac and insists men laugh in the face of pain. Back in the nurse's office, Ayuko offers to treat the wound since the nurse is out. Once she's done, she grabs a bottle from the fridge and starts to drink it. Then she offers Mikoto some. Mikoto takes a sip, and Ayuko takes some again. Afterward, Ayuko asks if they can be friends, but Mikoto refuses since she doesn't need any friends. At this, Ayuko promises to always be there for her and tries to head back to class when Mikoto notices a bruise on her leg, just like hers. At this, Mikoto grabs a razor and cuts her hand. She then sucks her finger and asks Ayuko to taste it quickly. Ayuko does it and suddenly finds a cut on her hand, so Mikoto explains that the bruise must have happened because she drank after her and swallowed her drool. which means they're deeply connected somehow. Makoto apologizes for hurting her, but Ayuko insists that it's a sign that they're meant to be friends. However, when Makoto explains that she's not the only one connected to her drool, Ayuko figures she must be talking about Akira. She reveals that on her way home, she'd seen Makoto giving him something, but now she knows it's drool. From then on, she'd been watching the two of them but couldn't get close to Akira because she has a boyfriend. Ayuko asks if the same kinds of things happen when Makoto gives Akira her drool, so Makoto confirms this and explains that she only needs one person like that in her life, which means no friends. After school, Makoto lets Akira taste her as usual. But when he suddenly develops the injuries from earlier, Makoto apologizes for forgetting. The next day in school, Akira watches Makoto walk out of the class, followed by Ayuko. Ayuko catches up and says there's something she'd like to ask, but then she takes a long pause with her eyes closed. After, she sucks on her finger and tells Makoto to lick it to understand what she wants to ask. Makoto agrees and is amazed by how sweet Ayuko tastes, since she's never tasted anything that sweet. At this, Ayuko figures Akira and Makoto haven't kissed yet because she closed her eyes to think of her first kiss with Kouai. After, Ayuko pulls out some lunch and asks Makoto if she wants to help her eat it, so Makoto admits that her body has changed ever since the time they had lunch. Hearing this, Ayuko suggests they eat lunch together from then on. Moments later, Akira and Kouai spot Ayuko feeding Makoto and wonder what on earth is going on. Some days later, the boys have soccer practice but somehow keep kicking the ball out of bounds. Kouai kicks his ball far away too, so the coach tells him to retrieve it, which is what he wants to hear. There, he uses the opportunity to check out the girls' swimming practice and finally gets a look at Ayuko in her swimsuit. Ayuko thinks she sees something, but Kai quickly runs away and tells the boys about his girlfriend's cup size. Next up is Akira, who is supposed to find out what Makoto is packing, but when he spots her through the fence, he gets distracted and misses the ball, along with his chance. After school, Akira and Makoto suck on popsicles when Akira asks if that was her last swimming class. When she says it was, he gets disappointed till he notices the salve on her stick and drops his mindlessly. After, they throw their sticks away, and Akira notices some sweat on Makoto and realizes how sweet she smells. However, when Makoto catches him being a creep, she prepares to cut him up when it suddenly starts raining, and they don't have any umbrellas. Because of this, they wait under a tree for the rain to stop. But when Makoto notices the rain is still touching her, she moves closer to Akira. Akira starts to smell something sweet again and asks her if she's got any perfume on, but Makoto says she doesn't use stuff like that. She smells herself and insists it's just sweat. As she licks the sweat and says the salty taste reminds her of the sea. When Akira looks confused, she explains that sweat and seawater both taste salty. Makoto asks if she likes the sea, so Makoto says she does and loves swimming too. After, Makoto offers her arm for him to lick. He agrees and licks it, and suddenly sees an image of Makoto on the sea, realizing they can understand each other through sweat too. Just then, Akira asks Makoto if she'd like to the sea together during summer break, since she likes it so much. Makoto smiles and agrees, then she walks off as Akira chases after her. During summer break, Akira and Makoto kept up their daily routine of sucking fingers, so Akira planned to ask her on a date. However, every time he was done sucking, Makoto would ride off on her bike immediately. She was so fast, he could barely get a word out before she was gone until one day when he physically stopped the bike from cock-blocking him. He then reminded Makoto of their plan to go to the sea together and asked if she'd like to go the next day. Unfortunately, Makoto says she's leaving to stay with her dad. When Akira gets sad, she says she'll be back in 4 days, so they can go the week after. Akira gets excited and asks her to meet him at the train station by 7 that day. Makoto agrees and rides off while Akira rejoices that he'll finally get to see her in a swimsuit. Later, Akira returns home, and Ilko wonders why he's grinning so much, but Akira doesn't know what she's talking about. When he heads upstairs, he sees his face in the mirror, and when he tries to look serious, he still can't stop himself from smiling. That night, Akira dreams of his beach date with Makoto as she turns into a mermaid. The blossoming Gunner has dreams like that every single night till the promised day finally came. That morning, his alarm goes off, and he realizes it is almost time to be at the station. When Yoko hears him scrambling around, she figures this is why he was so excited and smiles to herself. Later, Akira rushes to the station just in time to see Makoto waiting for him. But when she turns around, Akira is surprised at how overcooked she looks and asks what happened. Makoto says her dad lives near a beach, so she got sunburned when she went swimming. On the train to the beach, Akira keeps staring at her tan because of how different she looks when the sea finally comes into view. Moments later, Akira waits for Makoto as he samples the other cup sizes on the beach. Just then, Makoto shows up in her bikini top and Peru, and Akira's senses start tingling as she sits right beside him. She suggests they get something to eat before swimming, so they head over to a beach shack to order noodles. Akira tries to man up and pay, but Makoto has already beaten him to it. She then orders her noodles with extra red ginger. When they sit to eat, Akira is surprised at her choice of toppings, but when she sees he's interested, she feeds him some with her chopsticks. Later, Akira and Mikoto head into the sea, but Akira is surprised by how fast of a swimmer she is. Mikoto explains that she's pretty good at it and promises to slow down for him more. As they continue, Akira keeps falling behind, so he decides to make the most of it by taking a peek at her swimsuit underwater, but wishes she'd take off her peru. Just then, Mikoto stops and catches him staring below her waist. When Akira claims he was just admiring her peru, Mikoto tells him she doesn't usually wear it to swim. However, since the beach near her dad's house was empty, she had her scissors in her bikini and ended up with a sunburn tattoo of it. As Mikoto shows Akira the gates of heaven, his nose starts to bleed, so he suggests they race back out to sea to distract himself. Later on the train back, Mikoto says she had fun and asks how Akira felt too. Before he can respond, she sticks her finger in him and tastes it, causing her nose to bleed. Akira explains that he got his period when he saw the scissors outline earlier, so Mikoto wipes her nose and asks Akira if he wants to see it again. Akira shyly says he wants to, so Mikoto offers to show him next year when they go again. Akira agrees, and Mikoto smiles softly before falling asleep on the train. Some days later, Akira checks out a magazine when Ayuko runs into him and asks what he's doing. When Akira says he's just shopping, Ayuko suggests they grab some ice cream together. Akira hesitates, but Ayuko insists that running into a classmate is rare and convinces him to come along. Moments later, Ayuko gets them some ice cones, but Akira is too focused on her chess balls to hear her. Akira warns that Kohai might not be so happy to hear they were out together, but Ayuko insists that Kohai trusts him and calls him a nice guy. Suddenly, Akira realizes Ayuko and Kohai are on a first-name basis and even have pet names for each other. Akira wishes Mikoto would call his name too, so Ayuko whispers it in his ear. She then wipes some of the sweat from him, and when it tastes sweet, she asks if he was picturing Mikoto calling his name. However, Akira shyly denies the allegations. The next day in school, Akira and Kohai lament having to return to school when Ayuko walks past to talk to some girls. Akira asks Kohai if Ayuko mentioned anything about the day before, but when Kohai says she didn't, Akira changes the subject. Just then, Kohai notices his sunburn and suspects he went to the beach with his girlfriend, but Akira denies it and says it was his sister. During lunch break, Ayuko tells Mikoto that she ran into Akira the day before. When Mikoto asks what they talked about, Ayuko explains the conversation about first names and describes how shy Akira got about imagining Mikoto saying his name. Mikoto goes silent, so Ayuko sticks her finger in her mouth and tastes it. When she starts blushing, she figures Mikoto must have imagined Akira calling her name too. Mikoto tries to deny it, but when Ayuko keeps teasing her, she insists it's none of her business and storms off. After school, Akira laments about how hot it is and suggests they take a break at a park. When they arrive, Akira offers to go get some drinks, so Mikoto spots a bench to wait on. By the time Akira comes back, Mikoto is already asleep. Akira wonders if he should wake her when he remembers the cold drinks and knocks on the bench to wake her. When she doesn't budge, he tries shaking her, but nothing works till he whispers her first name in her ear. Suddenly, Mikoto wakes up red in the face and asks what's up. Akira then hands her the drink so it doesn't get warm and pretends nothing happened. Mikoto tries to ask how she woke up, but she changes her mind. Akira then figures she was happy when she woke up and tries to say her name again, but chickens out at the last minute to talk about the birds in the sky. Later at home, Akira figures it's too early to call her first name, but blushes when he remembers her smile. That night, he dreams of taking a picture of Mikoto's smile, so when he wakes up, he checks his bookshelf for his old camera. The next day, Akira asks Mikoto if he can take a picture of her cause she's his girlfriend, so Mikoto agrees and tells him to take as many as he wants. However, when he asks her to smile on the count of 3, Mikoto refuses to do it, insisting that it's pointless to fake smile for a photo. When Akira says he wants one with a smile, Mikoto walks off, leaving Akira confused in the street. Later at home, Akira wonders what it would have cost her to smile. The next day, Akira waits for Garebe on a bridge when his old crush, Eika, shows up and is surprised to run into him. She then suggests they get some coffee and catch up if he's free, but Akira turns her down because he's waiting for someone. Eika gets the message and suggests they do it another time as she walks off. After, Akira wonders where Mikoto is when he finds her crouched down near the bridge. She tells him she didn't want to interrupt their happy chat, but Akira insists it wasn't like that. As they walk on, Mikoto asks if the girl was the same one he had a crush on, so Akira admits it, but explains that he turned her coffee date down. He then asks if Mikoto would have been angry if he actually grabbed coffee with her, but Mikoto just looks sad. Akira tries to cheer her up when Mikoto licks her finger and gives it to Akira to taste. Suddenly, Akira begins to cry as Mikoto explains that she'd be extremely sad if he'd gone out with Eika. Upon hearing this, Akira admits that he did think it was a shame after he turned her down, but he insists that Mikoto is the girl he loves and there's no changing it. Mikoto smiles when she hears this, so Akira tells her not to move as he whips out his camera to take her picture. Makoto agrees to let him and takes her position, but when Akira counts down to 1, she makes a funny face. When Akira protests, she reminds him that it's a picture of her, whether she's smiling or not. Akira wanted one with a smile, but when he sees how cute she looks in the picture, he promises to treasure it and slips it into his wallet happily. Suddenly, Makoto insists they get going as she wipes the excess drool from her face, which means she's happy. Akira then joins her, and they walk back home together. The next day, during gym class, Makoto races against the captain of the relay team, Yajima, and manages to keep up with her. While she catches her breath, Ayuko shows up to tell her how amazing she was, which means she's the second fastest in the class. At this, Yajima points out that if Makoto is that good without practicing, she should definitely join the track team. However, when Makoto says she's not interested in joining any clubs, Yajima makes her promise to at least participate in their upcoming relay race. After school, Akira praises Makoto for being really fast if she can keep up with Yajima, who's won the state championship before. He then remembers how ridiculously fast she is with her panty scissors and figures she's pretty athletic. Makoto says she was asked to join the track team but turned them down because she wouldn't be able to walk with him every day. Akira gets moved by this and tries to hug her, but she moves out of the way and warns him not to hug her without permission. The next day during lunch, Ayuko hands Makoto some water and asks if she's thought about Yajima's invitation to join the track team. Makoto insists she's not joining, so Ayuko points out that Makoto could compete at an inter-high level with proper training, but she's choosing to let Akira have her juicy legs all to himself. Makoto says her legs don't belong to him, but Ayuko points out that the only reason she doesn't want to join is to walk home with Akira. Ayuko puts Makoto on the spot, so Makoto runs off to rejoin practice while Ayuko laughs and calls her cute. Meanwhile, Akira watches from the class as Makoto practices as the anchor of the team and is proud when he sees her win. Later at home, Akira finds Yoko with one of his uniforms and asks what she's doing, so she tells him his winter uniform just got in from the cleaners and he'll need to wear it from then on. When Akira leaves with the uniform, Yoko shuts the door and pulls out her old uniform so she can relive what it was like to be young and not pay the bills. Meanwhile, Akira feels happy that Makoto seems to be getting along with the other girls, but he feels conflicted that she no longer feels like only his. The next day in school, Makoto notices Akira is not at his desk, so during lunch, Ayuko tells her that the teacher announced that Akira has a bad cold and won't be able to watch Makoto run. Makoto says she's planning to visit Akira, so Ayuko explains that when Kohai was sick and had to miss school, she stopped by his house and something happened. Suddenly, the bell rings and Ayuko says they have to go, but Makoto asks what happened at Kohai's house. Ayuko then sits down and whispers what she did into Makoto's ear. She then points out how worried guys are because Kohai got better and came to school the next day. That evening, Makoto stops by Akira's house and is greeted by Yoko, who remembers her from the time before. Yoko offers to deliver the notes, but Makoto says she'd rather give it to him directly. Moments later, Yoko informs Akira of his visitor, just as Makoto walks in. He then asks what happened to her uniform, so Makoto explains that she went home and changed first. Akira says this reminds him of the first time she came before they started going out, but Makoto tells him he actually has a cold this time, so her drool won't cure him. At this, Akira figures he'll still have to stay in bed and gets disappointed that he can't go to field day and watch her run. Just then, Makoto sucks on her finger and hands it to Akira for his usual dosage. Suddenly, Akira sees a picture of summer and tells Makoto that he feels like he is in the summer sun for some reason. Makoto is surprised to hear this when Akira notices he doesn't feel numb and heavy anymore. He thanks Makoto for her drool, so Makoto says she's glad but has to leave now. Makoto then heads out and holds her coat tightly as she walks. When she gets home, she sneezes and is surprised that the sun from her drool warmed him up while she was feeling cold, because she was only wearing a bikini under the coat. The next day, the field day goes off without a hitch, and all the students cheer in excitement. Ayuko is glad to see Akira was able to make it, so Makoto says it was all thanks to the idea Ayuko gave her when she told her what she did for Kohai. Ayuko remembers when she asked Kohai if there was anything she could do for him when he was sick. Back then, the little virgin asked if he could see her in her swimsuit suit, which would surely make him feel better. He insisted he was just joking, but Ayuko figured since his parents wouldn't be back for a while, she would go back home, get changed, and be back in 40 minutes. When she returned, she showed Kohai her bikini, and Boy was ready to release the Hulk in his pants till Ayuko stopped him and insisted he return to bed or she'll break up with him. Kohai sadly agreed, but when he got back in bed, Ayuko hopped on top of him and asked if he could feel this strength rising aside from inside his trousers. In the present, Ayuko asks if Makoto did the same thing, but Makoto says she just let Akira taste her drool while she wore a bikini underneath. When Ayuko asks why she didn't let him see it, Makoto hesitates to answer, so Ayuko draws some of her drool to taste. She then realizes Makoto couldn't do it it, cause she was just embarrassed, and is surprised that Makoto is just a normal girl after all. Just then, they announce the upcoming track races, so Ayuko tells Makoto to use her legs for the class one more time. Moments later, the relay race begins, and Akira watches nervously as Ejima rushes to hand the baton over to Makoto. Makoto grabs the baton and runs like the Flash till she catches up to number 1, but struggles to pass her. Akira shouts words of encouragement from the crowd, and Makoto is able to push forward and win the race. The students gather around her to cheer, and Ejima asks one more time if she'll join the relay race. After school, Akira rushes down and notices his name tag is gone from his locker, and wonders who took it. Later, he walks home with Makoto and tells her to join the track team because she clearly has a special gift, so they'd make time to meet with each other during the week. Makoto then sucks her finger again and gives it to him, but when he starts smiling, she figures he wasn't being completely honest. Akira tries to deny it till she lifts up her skirt and shows his name tag on her leg, proving that he owns them. She then tells him it's a lot more fun to walk home with him anyway, and challenges him to a race to their usual spot. Some days later, Akira has a dream where Makoto gives him an all-access pass to her chesticles. When he wakes up, all he can think of is how real and bouncy they felt, but he decides not to sit in his room any longer, so he doesn't put his right hand to work. When he heads downstairs, he finds Yoko holding 2 meat buns together, which reminds him of another source of meat. But he runs out of the house before his trousers get cramped. After Akira heads to his favorite bookstore, but as he waits in line, he sees a picture of a bikini model and decides the bookstore was a bad idea. However, when he steps out, he has no idea where to go next. Moments later, he finds himself at the bridge where he splits up with Makoto every day and decides to walk in the direction where she lives. He then spots a building nearby when Makoto shows up behind him and asks why he's standing in front of her apartment. Akira is surprised she lives there, but explains that he was just wandering around the neighborhood and didn't think they'd run into each other. However, when he tries to leave, Makoto suggests he come in and have tea with her. At this, Akira follows her into the elevator and up to her floor while he thinks of how lucky he is. After, Makoto opens the door and welcomes him into a dark apartment, explaining that their family isn't home that day. Akira wonders if her family wouldn't happen to be the Adams family, but he follows her into her room. There, she takes off her jacket and unleashes a frontal assault with the missiles under her sweater. When she heads into the other room, Akira immediately thinks of the dream he had and figures that winter sweater must have been woven by crotch demons. However, he tries to calm himself so he doesn't come off as a creep when he suddenly notices her bed and decides to sniff it cause it smells like her. When Makoto returns, she asks what on earth he's doing, so he compliments her bed for being good for her back. Makoto then hands him some coffee and explains how surprised she was to see him, but Akira insists it was a coincidence. Just then, they notice that it's about to rain, so Akira is relieved that he came up with her before then and won't have to get wet. Suddenly, Makoto asks if there's something Akira wants to ask, but Akira denies it, even though he wonders if the gods are setting him up. Suddenly, Akira inches closer, but when Makoto asks what he's doing, he jumps back and compliments her coffee. Moments later, they notice the weather is getting much worse, so Makoto offers to turn on the light when a thunderbolt strikes nearby and causes her to trip into Akira's arms. Akira wonders if she's hurt, but is relieved when he sees it's only coffee she spilled. But he suddenly notices his hand is dangerously close to her frontal lobe. He tries to cop a feel when Makoto quickly pulls out her scissors and asks what he's trying to pull. Akira apologizes and admits that he had a dream of him feeling her up, and now he can't get it out of his mind. Makoto asks how it felt, so he says his brain went all tingly. At this, Makoto drops the scissors and grabs one of her melons while she sucks on her finger. She then gives Akira a taste and asks how it compares to his dream. Akira starts crying at the miracle of a girl's chest, so Makoto gets close and tells him he can feel the real thing if he wants. Akira reminds her that their mutual feelings were important for stuff like this, but Makoto says she'll count to 3 and he'll lose his chance. She starts the count, and before she finishes, Makoto places his hand on her chest and can even feel her heartbeat. The moment gets too intense for him, so he jumps on her and pins her to the floor. Makoto tries to call back his senses as he starts licking her ear, but when he doesn't give up, she starts crying. Suddenly, Akira notices her lips and tries to kiss her. When he notices she's been crying, he figures it's his fault and asks if she's mad, but she says she's not. Regardless, he grabs his coat and apologizes for letting his monkey brain take over. Then he leaves her on the floor like a true gentleman and runs home in the rain. Meanwhile, Makoto continues to touch her ear and cry. The next day in school, Ayuko feeds Makoto some of her lunch as usual, so Makoto licks her finger and hands it to Ayuko for dessert. Ayuko gladly tastes it and suddenly feels her heart pounding as her body gets hot and her glasses fog up. As she wipes them, she notes that this was a new level and asks if Makoto and Akira had gotten up to something scandalous recently. Makoto then says that something did happen the day before, and she felt something she'd never felt before. Ayuko tries to pry, but when Makoto stays silent, Ayuko tells her that it's normal for her body to change when she's in love. Makoto asks if she's ever felt anything like that with Kohai, but Ayuko says she's never felt that hot and bothered before. Suddenly, Makoto grabs her drink and runs off, so Ayuko cleans her glasses again as she figures Makoto and Akira have gotten ahead of her and Koi now. Meanwhile, Makoto runs into a tight alley where she touches her ear and gets happy. Later in class, Akira beats himself up for taking advantage of Makoto and then leaving her on the floor because he felt bad. So after school, he apologizes for his behavior, but Makoto wonders why, since she told him she wasn't mad the day before. She then suggests they head home and they return to their routine of sucking fingers. However, Akira insists that he not taste her until she hits him, because a boyfriend should never make his girlfriend cry. Makoto warns that her slap really stings, but Akira tells her not to hold back, so she slaps him hard. However, she then tells him to touch her ear and hold it tight, and when he does, she begins to cry. She explains that ever since he touched her ear, anytime she touches it, she begins to tear up. However, she says she kind of likes the feeling and reaches into Akira's mouth to get some of him to taste, transferring the bruise on her face. Makoto says she's also responsible for telling him to touch her, but Akira insists that he didn't want to see a bruise on the face he loves so much. Makoto goes red and quickly gives Akira his drool for the day, and when he tastes it, he gets hot, while Makoto mysteriously runs off. The next day, Akira notices Makoto has a bad case of bed hair, so he wishes she'd take better care of her hair since she's so cute. Just then, Ayuko shows up and tells Makoto her hair looks like she got zapped by lightning, and girls should take better care of their hair. In a few moments, Ayuko works her magic and gives Makoto a completely new hairstyle where her bangs aren't covering her face. Makoto then suggests she give it a try and keep her hair like that for a day. So Makoto heads to class with her new hairdo, and the girls instantly start complimenting her. Later during gym class, the boys notice Makoto too and start thinking of asking the former weirdo out, causing Akira to get upset and run his anger away. After school, Akira asks Makoto if she's going to school with the same hairstyle the next day, and when she says she might, Akira says he prefers her old hairstyle. Akira is secretly jealous that everyone else gets to see her face free of charge when her boyfriend has only seen it a few times. At this, Makoto takes out the hair ribbons and places Akira's hands in her hair. She then tells Akira to mess her up with as much force as possible, so Akira puts his back into it and returns her to her old hairstyle. She then promises not to use the other hairstyle if he doesn't like it and tries to walk off. However, when she turns back to tell him that messing up her hair felt good, Akira thinks that sounds kinda hot. The next day during lunch, Ayuko tells Makoto she's thought up another hairstyle to try, but Makoto says she's not interested. At this, Akira asks if she went back to the old hairstyle, because Akira asked her to, but even though she tries to deny it, Ayuko figures Akira must be the possessive type. She insists Akira must have gotten jealous of other guys looking at her, and then takes a bit of her insides to taste. Just then, Ayuko's heart starts racing, so she asks Makoto if something happened with Akira yesterday. Makoto says he did something that felt good, and then stands up to demonstrate it on Ayuko. So after school, Ayuko tells Koi to grab her head, which confuses him. Once he does, she tells him to mess her up as hard as he can, so he puts his back into it, and her glasses fog up from how good it feels. The next day in school, one of the boys starts selling pictures of Makoto from the day she changed her hair. Akira can barely contain his anger since her picture is something he treasures, but the other boys casually offer prices for the photos. When Akira begins to burn with rage, Koi asks if he needs to take a dump or something, so Akira tries to cover his rage by taking a drink. However, all he can think about is how Makoto is all his alone. Suddenly, the boy asks if Akira wants to buy any, but he feels conflicted. Just then, someone points out how much Makoto looks like an idol named Amai, so Koi takes the picture and agrees that he can see the resemblance. Akira asks who they're talking about, so the boys tell him about the idol that was recently in a mineral water ad. After school, Akira and Makoto finish their routine and say their goodbyes, but after Makoto walks off, Akira decides to hit the bookstore. There, he finds an Imai album, and when he sees they really do look alike, he decides to buy it. While at the counter, Kohai runs into Akira and is surprised to see him buying Amei's album. Akira then panics and says he has to go. When Akira gets home, he opens up the magazine and goes through the pictures of Amei while he thinks of Makoto, thankful that he made the purchase. Meanwhile, Kohai tells Ayuko about the boys trading Makoto's photos, so Ayuko asks if he got one, but he denies it since he has her. Ayuko asks if Akira got one, so Kohai said he didn't, even though he seems to have a thing for girls who look like that. When Ayuko asks how he knows, he reveals they're running at the store where Akira bought an Amei album. The next day in school, Ayuko lifts Mikoto's bangs out of the way and admits that she really does look like a Mai. She then spills that Akira apparently bought an Mai magazine, probably because she looks just like Mikoto. After school, Akira finishes sucking and tries to leave when Mikoto asks if it's true he bought an Mai magazine. Akira admits that he did so because they look alike, so Mikoto asks him to get the album from home while she waits at the park. Later, Mikoto flips through the spicy pictures of the model when she suddenly closes it and asks which is his favorite picture it is. Akira then opens up to the page while Mikoto grabs her scissors and snips it into a million pieces. She tells him not to go looking at other idols when he has her. Then she walks home, leaving him confused. The next day, Akira returns to the bookstore to buy another Mai album, wondering why Mikoto doesn't want him looking at someone who looks like her. When he walks out of the store, he suddenly bumps into a girl he doesn't recognize till she reveals she's Aika with a new haircut. After, they'd walk home together and Aika asks about their old classmates. So Akira tells him Koei now has a girlfriend and describes her. Hearing this, Aika asks if Akira has a girlfriend too. But Akira foolishly says he doesn't. Aika is surprised to hear this, because back in their old school, Akira couldn't take his eyes off her. But he barely recognized her with a different haircut now. She thought this meant he had a girlfriend who made him forget her. But Akira is stunned that she knew how she felt. Aika quickly admitted to knowing all about his crush and how he would stare at her back instead of the board. Akira asks how she could possibly know that, so Aika reveals she had a mirror inside her pencil case that she used to spy on him. Akira claims he was only admiring her hair, so Aika asks him if he ever wanted to touch it. When Akira gets embarrassed, Aika laughs and says she couldn't resist since she's having so much fun. She then reveals that her boyfriend dumped her recently, which is why it felt good to hear all about how Akira used to like her. Akira offers to keep talking about it if it helps her recover her self-confidence, so he remembers the time she left a strand of her hair behind. The little creep secretly took it and put it in a plastic capsule so he could look at it whenever he wanted. Akira suddenly asks if he's weirding her out, but Aika says it's not since she once took home her crush's coffee mug and kissed it like a loser. Aika says she's having so much fun, so Akira tells her he can't imagine a guy breaking up with her when she's cute and has a great personality. Aika thanks him, but suddenly bursts into tears from remembering her breakup. Akira tries to cheer her up, but when she lifts her soggy face up, he thinks she looks cute. He then notices her drool on her chin, which is the first time it wasn't Mikoto's drool he saw. Aika then asks if they can keep hanging out and talking, so Akira asks if he can taste her drool. Suddenly, he hears himself and tries to change his mind, but Aika sucks on her finger and offers him some in exchange for continuing to see him. Akira realizes he's always had a crush on Aika, and now he has a chance to know what she tastes like. But when he remembers Mikoto's words about their bond, he starts to tear up. He worries that tasting another girl's drool might break his bond with Mikoto, so he immediately apologizes to Aika for taking things this far when he wasn't serious. Hearing this, Aika figures Akira must have a girlfriend after all, so Akira confesses that he does, but only got weird because he had a crush on Aika for a long time. Aika asks if he's tasted his girlfriend's drool, and when Mikoto admits to it, she asks how it tastes. Akira says that it's very sweet, so Aika points out that hers might be even sweeter but claims she understands. However, as one last favor, she asks for his girlfriend's name, and the idiot tells her. At this, Aika grabs her bag, thanks him for the chat, and leaves. Meanwhile, Akira is relieved at how close that was in plans to keep it a secret. Later, Akira returns home, surprised that Akira has a girlfriend, but she's sure he would have tasted her if they were back in their old school, so she plans to make it happen. The next day, Akira tracks down Mikoto and tells her she has something to discuss. Mikoto instantly recognizes her, even though she's cut her hair, but explains that Akira already showed her Aika's picture. Aika praises her for being able to recognize her when Akira didn't, but Mikoto asks her to get to the point and state why she's there. She then hands Mikoto an invitation to her school's cultural festival, saying Akira will be there as well. That night, Akira rushes out of his house and finds Aika waiting for him with a band-aid on her face. When Akira asks what's going on, Aika explains that the guy that broke up with her came to see her the day before and wanted to get back together, but when she refused, he hit her. Akira laments how horrible that is, so Aika asks if he'd go to her cultural festival with her and pretend to be her boyfriend so her ex would see him back off. Akira asks why she doesn't ask anyone else, but she says she attends an all-girls school and doesn't have anyone else. When Akira sees those puppy dog eyes, he falls for it and agrees to do it, so Aika leans into him to thank him. She then makes him promise to come and runs off somewhere, where she wipes the fake bruise on her face off. The next day after school, Mikoto asks if he has any plans for Sunday, so Akira lies that he's going shopping with Kohai. Akira asks if she wants to go somewhere together, but Mikoto says she was just asking. The next day at lunch, Ayuko asks Mikoto if she's heard about the cultural festival and brags about how she's going with Kohei. When Mikoto says Kohei is supposed to be going shopping with Akira, Ayuko says that's not possible and suggests Akira might be lying. That Sunday, Akira arrives at the festival and realizes it's a costume festival. Just then, Aika shows up in her old school uniform and a long wig. She then grabs Akira and heads in with him. Later, Akira complains about Aika getting too clingy, but she insists that her ex-boyfriend might be watching and encourages him to play along. Meanwhile, Kohei and Ayuko are also at the festival when Ayuko spots a maid cafe and wants to go in. However, Kohei tells her he has to take a leak first. When he returns, he enters the cafe and takes a seat, wondering if Ayuko went to the bathroom too. Suddenly, Ayuko serves him in a maid's outfit, which shocks him. Ayuko says the girls let her try it on and asks what he thinks, but the poor boy almost loses his mind when she starts fondling her chest. Just then, some boys show up to take pictures of her, so Kohei gets mad and finds an excuse to leave. Just then, she spots Akira with another girl and wonders what's going on. Meanwhile, Aika takes Akira deep inside the school for a surprise. When he goes behind the curtain, he finds a classroom, so Aika asks if it feels just like the old days. Outside, Ayuko arrives and peeks through the curtain to watch them talk about their old school. Back then, their desks would face each other as they did their homework. When Aika got up to enjoy the breeze, Akira got close to hugging her, but was caught in the act and froze. In the present, Aika says he can hug her now since she's still the same girl he liked back then. When Akira insists he can't do it, Aika asks if having a girlfriend means he no longer has any feelings for her. She then takes off her wig and refuses to accept it as she guides his hand to her hair and offers to grow it back out if he becomes her boyfriend. Akira refuses, so Aika sucks her finger and tells him not to decide till he's tasted her drool too. As Akira is about to cave, Ayuko figures she has to stop him when Mikoto shows up in a cardboard costume and stops her. Just then, Akira refuses to taste Aika's drool when Mikoto walks in and tells him to taste it as well as hers. Akira wonders what's going on when Mikoto blindfolds him and explains that she and Aika will play rock, paper, scissors to determine whose drool he'll taste first, and all he has to do is guess whose drool he's tasting. Aika agrees to the challenge, so she and Mikoto play the game, and Mikoto wins. She then sucks on her finger and feeds it to Akira, who immediately starts nosebleeding. Mikoto can tell it's Mikoto, but wonders why she doesn't have anything on. Mikoto then cuts through the cardboard and tells Aika that's how powerful their bond is, that he could tell without even seeing her. She then challenges Aika to try making his nose bleed if she truly has a bond with him. Aika immediately accepts the challenge and takes off all her clothes while Akira realizes he's one blindfold away from seeing his girlfriend and ex-bear. Aika sucks her finger and prepares to feed it to Akira, who is worried of messing up since he's already flustered. However, when Mikoto assures him she's fine with it, he tries to go for it when Aika suddenly starts crying and changes her mind. Mikoto then tells Aika that those are clearly tears of rejection and if she really loved him, she wouldn't be crying. Akira then suggests that Aika isn't thinking clearly cause she just got dumped recently, but Aika suddenly reveals that she's only ever had unrequited crushes because they never liked her back. Hearing this, Akira tries to console her by telling her how happy he was when she asked him to be her boyfriend, but Mikoto quickly shuts the idiot up before he says more. She then sticks her finger inside Aika to taste it, and when she realizes it's sweet, she assures her she'll find someone who will return her feelings someday. Hearing this, Akira wonders what she tastes like too, but figures Mikoto would slice him up if she knew what he was thinking. He then starts shaking in fear, which causes his blindfold to fall off and give him the best view in the house. Ayuko informs the girls they've been compromised, so they both slap the peeping Tom out of him, and he passes out while Ayuko asks what they were thinking stripping in the first place. Aika bursts out laughing and says she was depressed till she had fun with them, even though she caused them some trouble. She was also surprised that his nose bled when he tasted Mikoto and never knew such a thing existed. She asks if she'd ever share a bond with someone, too, so Mikoto assures her that she will. When the cultural festival is over, Aika goes back to her old self and decides to grow out her hair. Meanwhile, on the way home, Akira asks if Mikoto is angry that he lied and kept things with Aika a secret, but Mikoto says it's only natural. She then reveals that she also had an old flame she was madly in love with before, so if he asked to meet, she'd probably do it and keep it a secret from Mikoto. Akira gets sad when Mikoto turns around and tells him she's kidding, but explains that if he felt sad, he shouldn't do to her what he wouldn't want her to do to him. Akira apologizes and asks if she was really making it up, so Mikoto explains that she's never had a crush or a date, so her first kiss would be with Akira. She then tastes his drool and gets a big smile on his face. At this, she tells him he's such a guy and runs off. The next day, Ayuko asks Mikoto to show her the trick she did with the scissors and cardboard, but Mikoto says she doesn't want to since it's not something to show off. off. Ayuko then asks how Akira is doing since he saw her without any clothes on and figures it has already poisoned his mind. Makoto blushes as she claims it's not a big deal, so Ayuko shows her the pictures she took of her in the moment. Makoto immediately tries to grab it, but Ayuko refuses to hand it over, promising to keep it as a treasure. With no other choice, Makoto goes into panty scissors mode and cuts the picture up. Ayuko is fascinated by her skill and lifts up Makoto's skirt to see the scissors under there, but Makoto gets embarrassed and loses her cool for once. After school, Akira and Makoto walk home. But all he's been able to think about since the festival is her body without clothes on. He could barely stop himself from hugging her. Just then, Makoto gave him the usual finger and then asked for some of his. Akira insisted he wasn't feeling well, but Makoto distracted him and took some of his drool, which suddenly made her get red and hot. However, when she asks him why, Akira just screams and runs away. Later, Makoto arrives at her apartment and is still feeling the effect of Akira's drool when she remembers what Ayuko said about Akira picturing her body, and suddenly feels dirty. The next day in school, Akira notices Makoto asleep at her desk again when he begins to undress her in his imagination, and has to look away. After school, Makoto gives him the usual dose when his head starts spinning, and he can barely see her clothes on. This time, he can't take it anymore, so he tries to hug her, but she speeds away and uses her scissors to cut up his handkerchief. She then reminds him to stop hugging her without warning when she notices a cut on his forehead and freaks out. Akira tells her it's okay and plans to wipe it, but his handkerchief is already gone. Makoto says they need to disinfect and dress it so it doesn't leave a scar, so she invites him to replace. Akira gets red at the idea, but he ends up at her apartment for the second time. Makoto tells him to wait in her room while she gets the first aid kit. But while she does, she decides to test out her scissors power on a picture frame, but accidentally cuts through the curtain behind it too. Meanwhile, Akira notices Makoto's bed again, and the intrusive thoughts scream at him to get close. However, when he feels her pillow, he notices that it's damp and smells sweet. Just then, Makoto returns to the room and tells him she'll disinfect it first. As she cleans him up, she apologizes for being off her game, so Akira figures it's unlike her and asks what happened. At this, Makoto says she had a weird dream, so Akira asks if her wet pillow might have something to do with the dream. Makoto gets red and looks away, then she sucks on her finger and gives it to Akira to try. Akira's head starts spinning again while Makoto's clothes fade, so he suggests he head home so he doesn't end up hugging her. Makoto tries to stop him since she hasn't treated his wound, but Akira freaks out when he sees no clothes and ends up pushing her away. He immediately regrets this and tries to check on her, but ends up tripping and tumbling toward Makoto. However, to protect her, he changes directions and hits his head on the bed instead. Makoto rushes to make sure he's okay, so Akira explains that he didn't want to land on her bed and end up hugging her. At this, Makoto walks to him and hugs him, explaining that she prefers that to him getting hurt. She then suggests they take care of the wound and runs to get ice. Later, as Akira is about to leave, Makoto apologizes for causing his head injuries, so Akira asks what happened in her dream anyway. Makoto then hints that she and he had done some sweaty cardio and runs back into her apartment. There she tests her scissors powers again, and they seem to be back to normal, which means the hug must have helped her snap out of it. That night, Akira has a creepy dream about chasing Makoto, but she turns into a white creamy substance and drowns his face in her. The next day, Akira asks Kai what happened to his head, so he explains that Ayuko wanted to shorten his bangs and was trying some weird trick with the scissors that ended up cutting him. Kohai returns the question, so Akira says he fell on his face. Kohai then hands him some gauze since he's supposed to change it every day. When Akira asks why it's in pieces, Kohai explains that Ayuko tried again with the scissors, and Akira realizes she's trying to copy Makoto. Just then, another classmate shows up and tells him the teacher wants to see him in his office. However, she notices Akira's band-aid coming off. She replaces it with a new one just as Makoto watches. On the way to the staff room, Akira asks the girl for the gauze back, but when she offers to throw it away, Akira insists on getting it back. After school, Akira meets up with Makoto, who's surprised to see the old gauze back on his head, so he explains that it might heal faster with the one she put for him. Makoto smiles at this, and they walk to their usual spot where Makoto gives him the good stuff. While he sucks, he reaches out and hugs Makoto, but this time, she doesn't resist. Suddenly, Akira jumps back and apologizes, but she tells him it's okay, since she wanted him to hug her this time. She then says goodbye and walks off while Makoto feels happy that he has finally reached her heart. The next day, Akira arrives home from school and finds Yoko drooling on the table. When she wakes up, he points out the drool on her chin and asks if she has a boyfriend. Yoko wonders why he's interested all of a sudden, but walks off without an answer. Later, Makoto walks through town when she spots Yoko buying some groceries. She then calls out to her, and Yoko instantly recognizes her as the girl who brings Akira his notes. Makoto tells her that Akira sits next to her and helps her a lot, so it was nice seeing her. But before she walks off, Yoko calls out and asks if she wants to go along with her. They end up at a cafe where Yoko treats Makoto to some coffee. She then gushes over the feel of the uniform, which is the same as she remembers it, as she went to the same school as Akira and Makoto. She then asks Makoto if she's heard any rumors about who Akira is dating, but Makoto says she hasn't. Yoko then figures that even if he were still single, he probably has a girl that he likes, which is how it was for her. At this, Makoto asks if she ended up dating the boy, so Yoko says she did, and it reminds her of Akira's question after he saw her drool. She wonders why he would ask her that, but she had just been dreaming of her high school days before he woke her up. Back then, her boyfriend had shown her the picture he took of her drooling, but snatched it back so he could keep it safe. Because of those memories, Akira's question really caught her off guard. Suddenly, Yoko apologizes for boring Makoto with her old stories, but Makoto asks what happened to her old boyfriend. At this, Yoko explains that he went to another university and stayed in touch for 6 months, but they slowly drifted apart, and now she doesn't know where he is, but she still wonders if he has that picture of her. After, Yoko asks if Makoto has a boy she likes, and when she says she does, Yoko wishes she could be like her. However, she reveals she basically acts like a mom to Akira, because their mom died a while ago. After the coffee date, Yoko thanks Makoto for hanging out with her, so she hands her a cherry mochi, saying everyone in her family loves it. Before Yoko walks off, Makoto officially makes sure to tell her her full name, so Yoko promises to remember it. The next day, Makoto, Yoko, and her dad visit their mom's grave. Yoko divides some tasks to prepare for the offering, and Yoko places a cherry mochi on the tombstone. After, they all say a prayer. When they're done with the visit, Yoko says she gave their mom a report about Akira. When Akira acts surprised, Yoko says she'll raise him properly like she were his mom till he turns 20 or starts working. Akira worries that she won't get married till then and insists it won't need to be that long. Their dad agrees and tells her to find a nice man and move out, till Yoko reminds them that none of them can cook. Yoko then asks Akira what he told her mom, so he says he just told her what's going on. But when Yoko asks what that is exactly, he avoids answering. Some days later after school, Makoto tells Akira she ran into his sister, and they had a nice little chat. When Akira asks what they talked about, Makoto says Yoko told her about an old boyfriend she had, which shocks Akira. But Makoto says they drifted apart and broke up. She then asks Akira if he likes cherry mochi since his sister gave her some. So Akira explains that it's mostly for his mom since she loves cherry mochi. When Makoto asks about his mom, Akira explains that she died when he was little, but it doesn't make him sad anymore because he's lived most of his life without her. After, they do the usual when Makoto asks if he has plans next Sunday. When he says he's free, she asks to visit his mother's grave with him, and he agrees. When the day arrives, Yoko reminds Akira to be back in time for dinner, so Akira tells her not to worry about him and their dad if there's ever any man she likes. When he leaves the house, he wonders why on earth Makoto would want to visit her grave, but since they're not meeting in their school uniforms, he decides to count this as a date. He then meets up with Makoto, who is dressed more girly than usual and holding flowers, shocking him. Akira leads her to the bus they'll be taking and wonders if they're going to a party. Even on the bus, he wonders if this is how to dress when visiting a grave, even though it looks cute on her. Later, they arrive at the grave, and Makoto places her flowers on the stone. She then opens up some beef and bacon that Ayuko taught her how to make. After laying them out, Makoto says a prayer. Then she tells Akira that even though it's a grave, she still counts it as meeting her boyfriend's mom, so she wanted to look as nice as possible. Akira is surprised she thought of it that way, so Makoto asks what kind of person his mother was, but Akira tells her he can't remember cause he was too young. Makoto then asks when the grave was built, and when he says it was right after she died, Makoto places his hand on the gravestone and suggests they exchange drool while they touch it. Akira agrees, and they exchange drool at the same time, unlocking a feeling neither of them had experienced before. However, when Akira opens his eyes, he sees Makoto crying. So she explains that even though he can't remember it, he cried a lot when his mom died, but now he can smile thanks to his dad and sister. She hopes she can become that person for him, so Akira cries and smiles at the same time. Afterward, they walk back, and Akira points out how inappropriate it might have been to exchange drool in front of his mom's grave. However, Makoto insists it was necessary, since they'll be doing way more inappropriate things from then on. They both blush and continue walking back home, enjoying each other's company. If you made it to the end of this video, prove it by commenting "I want to taste Makoto." And if you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video right here.